This is just my first kind of overall look at the rookie rankings. I'm just going off of the rankings that Fantasy Pro has here for the 2023 rookies. The draft is complete now, so we know what teams these players are on. Bijan Robinson is a clear 101. Um, he's clearly the best prospect, and he went to a decent landing spot where he's going to get tons of opportunity. Obviously, they got Tyler Algier there. He'll get some carries, but this is Bijan Robinson's backfield. They don't draft him that high. He was picked number 8. You don't draft a running back at pick number 8 to not use him. The only question is, can the offense move? Obviously, if their offense is terrible, it'll limit his upside, kind of like we saw with, Kyle Pitts and Drake London. So hopefully they can move the offense a little bit better this year. After that, there's literally question marks everywhere, like immediately at pick number 2. So Jaxon Smith-Njigba, right? It's not surprising he was the first receiver taken, but he goes to a receiving core with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So just for the immediate short term, he's not going to probably have a big impact unless Tyler Lockett regresses and he's not a good player anymore or something, or if one of them gets injured. Eventually he'll probably take over as a dominant wide receiver as long as he turns into the player that people think he can be. But, it's a murky situation. And they also, the same team, the Seahawks, they drafted Zach Charbonnet. So their backfield, they got a ton invested in Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, high draft capital running backs. They're going to use them too, and hopefully Geno Smith can actually air it out again this year. But, going into the season, he'll be the wide receiver 3. He'll get more involved as the season goes along. And then, years down the road, he'll be the guy most likely. But in the short term, for Dynasty, or for redraft, it's a little rough. For Dynasty, he'll get there probably, but it'll just probably take some time unless he just comes in as the one. But, or, how is that going to happen? Jahmyr Gibbs, highly drafted running back, they're going to use him, but, it's the Detroit Lions. They drafted him number 12 overall, and they now have traded DeAndre Swift to the Eagles. So now in that backfield, they lost Jamal Williams. They lost Jamal Williams to free agency. They traded away DeAndre Swift. Now it's David Montgomery, who they signed in free agency. And they got Jahmyr Gibbs, who they drafted with the 12th overall pick. I mean, he obviously is a highly regarded player, drafted that high. Probably higher than most expected, but it's the Detroit Lions. It's kind of not a great history of running back production, but last year we saw Jamal Williams be productive, but that was on the back of a ton of 1-yard touchdowns. It's kind of, I don't want to say fluky because he punched them in, but just even having as many opportunities as the Lions did at the goal line, it was kind of like an outlier. So again, question marks. Like I'm not saying that any of these players are going to be bad. I'm just saying it might take some time for some of these things to happen, because David Montgomery, they brought him in free agency for a reason. He's a decent player. He's going to be used in some regard. Granted, there's very few running backs that are true workhorses, but out the gate, Bijan Robinson is going to be like the guy. Gibbs, maybe they won't even use what's his name? David Montgomery. I almost forgot his name for some reason, but it'll probably be a tandem of some sort. Yo, it's me from the future after I recorded that. One thing I forgot to mention was that Gibbs is an elite pass-catching prospect. So in PPR leagues especially, he should see a ton of production just by catching a lot of passes. DeAndre Swift saw a ton of targets last year in limited time, even not seeing the field that much. So I think this offense could rely on the running back position for some passing game production, not only because Gibbs is supposedly going to be a good player in that regard at the NFL level, and he's shown that ability in the past, but also because with a Jameson Williams suspension, there should be more targets to go around, at least in the short term, while he is not on the field. So that just only helps Gibbs' case. Jordan Addison from my Minnesota Vikings, we're clearly winning it all now. We lost Adam Thielen. He steps in. He'll be our wide receiver too. But again, he'll have a good opportunity. It's a good offense. Kirk Cousins can get the ball to the receivers, but this is Justin Jefferson's receiving core. They got TJ Hawkinson at tight end. Other than that, they have KJ Osborne, who was slotted in to be the wide receiver 2. Now he'll be the wide receiver 3, theoretically. Maybe to start the year, Addison will have a lesser role. But as the year goes on, Addison will get more involved. But he's not going to overtake Jefferson as the 1. It's just not going to happen. But, you do have some situations where 2 wide receivers can coexist and be super good for fantasy. You got like Jamar Chase and T. Higgins type of deal. But the Vikings, I mean, it depends how we run the offense. If they throw it a ton, maybe both can eat, but rookie wide receivers take a while sometimes to kind of get it rolling. We'll see what his role is to start the year, but this is still Jefferson's receiving core, but he'll take over for Adam Thielen. And he'll have some opportunity to be productive, but his ceiling might be somewhat limited with Jefferson there, but still, I mean, you look at T. Higgins as the wide receiver 2 behind Ja'Marr Chase, and he's still great for fantasy. So I'm hoping he's a great player. Obviously, this projection is all based on like assuming they're going to meet their expectations, which a lot of these players will not. Okay, a lot of these players will just flat out not be good, even if they get an opportunity. And it happens. It definitely happens. Quentin Johnston, again, same thing with Jaxon Smith-Njigba, highly regarded wide receiver, but he's going to a receiving core that has Mike Williams and Keenan Allen. So he's going to step in as a wide receiver 3 unless someone gets traded or injured. As the season goes along, even if he gets hot, I don't see him overtaking any of those guys. I mean, Mike Williams has been inconsistent kind of throughout his career. He's flash, but some games he disappears. So maybe Quentin Johnston will be kind of the more reliable wide receiver 2, and Mike Williams will be used as more of like a jolt of electricity for the offense. But we'll see. It might just take time. Might take a trade. Might take an injury. Zay Flowers for the Baltimore Ravens. You got Rashad Bateman there and Mark Andrews, so he should step in with an opportunity. But again, I don't know why I said again. I haven't talked about this yet. I was thinking about this, though. With the Baltimore Ravens, bro, with Lamar Jackson, he's a good player, but he's not really a pocket passer, get the ball to the receiver a ton type of guy. So if you got, all these couple receiving threats already there, plus you add Zay Flowers to the mix, I feel like the consistency might not be there. It just depends how they use him in the offense. I don't really see wide receivers getting hyper targeted super consistently by Lamar Jackson. I don't know the numbers behind that, but that's just kind of the general feeling, what it feels like. I think that's probably what people would agree with. But the top 6, there's a clear top 6 here, and you can make a case for Zach Charbonnet, but he's in a tandem with Kenneth Walker, which I already talked about. Again, he's a highly regarded prospect, could come in and be a good player, but the situation is terrible for him and Kenneth Walker. Even if it's a 50-50 split, they're just going to eat into each other's production. They drafted Smith-Njigba high. They have Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. So the offense as a whole, it should be moving. So the offense might be scoring a lot of points, which helps all the players, but it might be hard to know whose week it's going to be, who's going to get the goal line carry, who's going to rip off a big run, yada, yada, yada. And then we got these kind of big 3 quarterbacks. You got Anthony Richardson, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud. Anthony Richardson is the athletic freak here, just jumped out the gym at the combine, So if he can put together enough of a passing skill set to stay on the field, and he runs and uses his legs, he'll be great for fantasy because his fantasy's broken, and that's how it works. And then Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, they'll have their chances too. That they're not necessarily going to the best situations, but the Colts at least have they got Pittman. They've drafted a couple players over the years lately. Bryce Young, they got rid of DJ Moore to get the pick to get Bryce Young. They're trying to retool that receiving core. They brought in Mr. Adam Thielen, so hopefully he's got something left in the tank for Bryce Young. And CJ Stroud going to the Texans, you just worry with that organization, like how can they mess it up? Because they've messed things up a lot lately. But talent will hopefully win out for these guys. If you just kind of look at quarterbacks and drafts over the years, it's these players are most likely not all going to be elite top end quarterbacks. Maybe they will be, but there's a lot of busts that get drafted. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I'm a quarterback guru and I know who's going to make it, but they'll have the opportunity to. So just for draft purposes, like if you're talking about a dynasty league, Bijan's a clear 1-1. After that, these players, you might love them, you might like their talent. Some of their situations have some question marks where in the immediate term, they might not have as big of an impact, but down the road, talent always wins out. And, well, I shouldn't say always, but usually it'll win out and they'll get their chance. But you look after that, man. You got Dalton, Kincaid in Buffalo. Tight ends take a while to be productive usually. Rookie tight ends often don't do much. So Dawson Knox is there, but by the time Kincaid comes to his own, it'll probably be his tight end spot to start. And it just comes down to if he's a talented player. It's a good offense, so he definitely has an opportunity there. Kendre Miller, however you say that, for the Saints. You have the Kamara suspension / potential. It's hard to know. Is Kamara losing a step, or is he just suffering because Drew Brees is gone? Jamal Williams got signed in free agency, so if Kamara is suspended, that'll open an opportunity. But if not, he's probably going to enter the season as a running back 3 on that team. And again, it'll just take time. Might be a talented player, but it'll just take time. And after that, it just gets kind of less exciting, you know. I mean, Devon will have an opportunity in Miami. The offense can score points there, but where did he get drafted? Number 84, huh? I mean, he should be used. He should be used. You know, we'll see what happens. Michael Mayer at tight end, replacing Darren Waller. He'll have a chance to show out there. After that, it's just not great. Some of these players will turn out to be good, but I just kind of want to focus on the top part of the draft here. So I think there's a clear distinction between 1-1 and then this kind of tier of players. Maybe throw Charbonnet in there. And then you got the 3 quarterbacks, and after that, you got a couple tight ends, some running back, wide receivers that the situation just seems a little less ideal than with these guys, but we'll see. Those are just my initial thoughts on the rookie rankings here, just from Fantasy Pros. So obviously, whenever you think you know something in fantasy, it turns out to be different. So we'll see what happens a year or two from now. And if you look at these players in the short term, Bijan is still obviously the 1-1. Great talent, should be able to be the guy coming in and moving forward. And Gibbs, short term, I feel like Gibbs and Addison in the short term have the highest chance for relevance after that, if you're talking skill position players. Because Gibbs has David Montgomery to compete with, but he could easily win that job, I think. Jordan Addison, he's not going to be the wide receiver 1 there, but he can be a nice secondary target behind Justin Jefferson. And having Jefferson on the field should make things easier for Addison. And you still have Hawkinson there. But we see offenses all the time, provide enough production for multiple targets. So you got kind of a big 3 there. KJ Osborne will have his splash plays too. And you got Dalvin Cook as well. But for now, we'll see if he's on the team. But, it might be inconsistent. But we'll see. We'll see. And then Jaxon, Smith-Njigba, we'll have to see what happens this year, because with Lockett and Metcalf, Lockett's, I think he's 30 now, but we haven't seen him really have a downturn in production. So he might be the type of player where he'll have his weeks where he makes a play and he's not in your lineup, and then you think, oh, he's him. But you just, and then you play him, and then maybe it's a Tyler Lockett week, or maybe they run in a few touchdowns. So it might just be kind of frustrating. And then Quentin Johnston, kind of the same thing, coming in as probably the 3rd target, behind Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So Zay Flowers again, you got Andrews and Rashad Bateman. I don't know why I forgot his name. So he'll probably enter as the 3rd target as well, but we'll see for redraft purposes. And Zach Charbonnet, he's the secondary running back there. So even if he, at best, unless the team really just has something against Kenneth Walker that we don't see, he's going to come in as the 2nd running back there. And at best, it's going to be, a 50-50, unless he somehow overtakes the backfield or if there's an injury. So for redraft purposes, man, I would probably target Bijan, Gibbs, and Addison. But yeah, it's not looking great for a lot of these guys in the short term, at least. But those are my kind of overall thoughts on sort of the top rookies. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but those are my initial thoughts. I feel like, once you get into these later picks, it's just bro, I had an offer. Someone wanted to give me a 3rd and a 4th round pick for Samaje Perine for the Denver Broncos, and I didn't accept it, and I'm waiting through the draft to kind of see what happens. And the Broncos, it still seems like with Javonte coming off that injury, that horrific knee injury, it's kind of looking like Perine is going to kind of have an opportunity to play a lot of meaningful football, at least to start the year. But, I could trade that in. I could cash that in for a 3rd and a 4th round pick. But if you look at, where I'm in a 10-team league, so this will be the 1st round, this will be the 2nd round. I can't remember where the pick is. It's somewhere in the middle of the 3rd round. So you're kind of looking right here. I mean, okay, Rice for Kansas City. The offense is explosive, but how many times do we see a receiver go to Kansas City that's not Tyreek Hill or Travis Kelce, and you're just like, oh my God, the offense is so good, and then nothing comes of it. They just have a week here and there, but just a lot of question marks. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna keep Samaje Perine because at least he'll have some value in the short term at the very least. You would think might be a nice handcuff. So we'll see, but yeah, those are my overall thoughts.